Christopher Taylor up on the hill with Sovereign Harmony Astrology, here to do the astrology for the week of really July 26th to the end of July. But today is Monday, July 27th, because we had a little local rain out here yesterday morning when I was going to do this. But it doesn't matter. Energy's still the same, and it's a very potent week with the main player being this full moon in Aquarius. Very potent. Other pieces to it that we'll build up to, but we'll put it all together or bring it all together at the end here as well. So first things first, yesterday on Sunday the 26th, we had Saturn turn retrograde in Aries. We also had the moon's true nodes switch signs. So north node went from Pisces to Aquarius, south node went from Virgo back into Leo. Starting with that Saturn retrograde in Aries. So since February 13th, when Saturn entered Aries, we've been building personal boundaries, okay? We've also been taking responsibility on a personal level for our mental, emotional, physical well-being, okay? And the next 5 or so months until mid-December, when Saturn turns direct in Aries, we'll be reviewing and getting tested on those boundaries and on that self-responsibility. So anywhere we haven't set solid boundaries, we'll be reminded to. Anywhere we haven't taken personal responsibility physically, we'll be reminded that, oh, I'm not taking care of myself. Mentally, we're thinking negative thoughts that are leading to results we don't want. Take control of that. Or emotionally, if we're blocking our emotions, we're not properly processing them, we'll be put in check with that as well. So we'll learn that, dams break essentially when the water builds and the force of that water wants to push, it will break. So you can't really dam that flow. But we'll be reminded of that if it comes up, okay? Those node switching signs. The last time the nodes went into Aquarius for the north node and into Leo for the south node was in December of 2007. And so it was in that position from December 2007 until August of 2009, okay? In this case, it enters yesterday, and it'll be with us till March of 2028. So last time, if you want to think about it, just a couple of weeks before the node switched in this manner last time was when the iPhone came out, was the first smartphone, okay? And so since this is from Leo, south node, to Aquarius, north node, this is very much about the power or capacity to influence switching from the few, the Leo, the hierarchy, to the many in Aquarius, okay? And so this was really when social media started to rise. Once we had the internet in our hands, essentially, things really started to explode. And if you remember, there was an election in the US that happened within that realm that featured a candidate that wasn't supposed to win over another candidate, and then they actually won the election. Very much, regardless of your politics, very much about the objective influence of social media and, the people having their choice and the way information spread in that sense, okay? So what happens here in the next year and a half or so, and we're gonna have another round of this kind of transfer of power or capacity to influence from the few to the many. So it'll be interesting how that plays out, okay? This also brings in new rulers of the north and south nodes, okay? So the ruler of the south node now is the sun. Sun rules Leo. Ruler of the north node, the traditional ruler anyway, in Aquarius is Saturn. And so Saturn and the sun become important here. And it's interesting because right here, right away, we have Saturn turning retrograde. Saturn turned retrograde just as it became the ruler of the north node or the ruler of the direction we were headed. Okay, so it's almost like the direction we're headed is on pause for a minute, and we're focusing on this sun, which is in Leo. So the south node enters Leo. The ruler of that south node is the sun, and the sun is in Leo. Okay, and that sun, right now, as we speak here on Monday, is basically backing up Jupiter. Jupiter is part of that barbell basket. So that's featuring the outer planets, Uranus in Gemini, Neptune in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, and Jupiter is opposing that Pluto in Aquarius, forming this basket with the rim of the basket being that opposition between Jupiter and Pluto. Now, Jupiter is kind of pulling off of that right now, but the sun right now, as we speak, is emphasizing or re-emphasizing that basket. That is that basket that wants to contain more of ourselves as we move into the future. It's reminding us to be in our most courageous, most expansive mode, essentially, as we move forward into the future, so that we can, infuse our personal contribution to the many, okay, and whatever that is. And then, so now we get to this full moon, which features this conjunction between the sun and Jupiter in Leo, opposing the moon in Aquarius, which is right on Pluto. So that, again, that rim of that basket is being emphasized by this full moon, with the moon on the Pluto side and the sun on the Jupiter side. So very potent. It's almost as if this basket had a lid on it, and now this is ripping the lid off and exposing the empty basket that can be filled or contained with whatever we want to contain it with. What's also interesting is we have this other configuration. So we have the barbell basket, that's a configuration. We also have this Thor's hammer configuration. And what this is the head of the hammer is this square between Venus in Virgo and Mars in Gemini. So it's a creative tension. It's like a relationship tension as well. Gemini, wants variety, so it's Mars and Gemini is like, hey, what are my options for what I can do? Venus and Virgo wants things by the book, wants to follow the rules, right? And so there's tension there. And so that tension needs to be resolved, and the resolution point for that tension is the full moon itself with Pluto and Aquarius, okay? And also, in addition to that, we have in the bottom of the basket. So if we were like open that basket, almost dead center in early Taurus, we have Chiron. Chiron is in that basket. Chiron in Taurus is all about self-worth. So what it's saying is the limits of what can be contained in that basket going forward are a result of our perception of our limits of self-worth. So the more worthy we believe ourselves to be, the more that barbell basket can contain. So the lid's being ripped off, it's being open and saying, what can we fill this with? Well, it depends on how much we think we're worth, okay? And our worthiness is shifting because of that conjunction between the Sun and Jupiter and Leo, because we're expanding beyond maybe what we've contained ourselves with before. And this full moon in Aquarius, which again is resolving the tension between that Mars and Venus square, it also has to be that resolution point for, how much are we worth? Are we ready to be worthy of? So if we just look at that resolution point, since it's the most important focus, that moon and full moon in Aquarius with Pluto, this is about eliminating emotional patterns, eliminating group associations, maybe even individual friends of our, any associations we have are a reflection of our self-worth, okay? We're associated with groups and people because of where we think we're worthy. As we're expanding, okay, into this new paradigm with the Sun, Jupiter, and Leo, part of this barbell basket saying, hey, we can contain so much more for ourselves. If we're willing to entertain that expanding self-worth, which is a challenge, then that requires us to eliminate those groups, those friends, those limitations essentially that are only representing what we think we've been worth until now. So something has to go for us to go into our future. Our future is saying we're worth more, we need to contain more, and whatever we're associated with, what we've been associated with, needs adjustment. We need to release groups, friends, even ideas of our future. So our ideas of our future are also limited on our perception of our worth. What am I worth in my future, right? So as we expand here in the present, our sense of the future expands as well. So we have to eliminate what we perceived our future to be. So who we associate with, where we think we can go from here, emotional patterns that that are done and not serving us anymore. All of this needs to be examined and released so that that basket that is being ripped open right now can contain more. Are we willing, though, to see ourselves as worthy enough for that to be more contained, more representative of where we're headed in the future? And so this resolution between Mars and Venus is very important. This will actually come back in October and January. We'll have this square between Venus and Mars, again, all 3 times. That's because Venus will turn retrograde this fall. So the next square between Mars and Venus will feature Mars direct squaring Venus retrograde. And then January to be the opposite. It'll be Venus direct squaring Mars retrograde. So this tension is going to be ongoing, but the phase of it right now really has to do with, Mars versus Venus, Mars and Gemini versus Venus and Virgo. Are we going to do things the old way, or are we going to be willing to break the rules? That's really the key phrase here. We got to break our rules, break our patterns in terms of our relationships in order, it's got to reflect this new sense of self in order to open up to what the future wants for us in terms of our relationships, in terms of who we associate with, what we expect for ourselves. So it's a lot to swallow there. So if you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any comments, put them down below as well. Other than that, enjoy this very potent week. Don't be afraid to release what needs to be released so we can move forward. And we'll catch you next time. Take care.